I almost told her to get out of the way. Saturday before Christmas, Gate 14, Garrison Field. 11 wheelchairs lined up along the windows like dominoes set on their ends, frost still clinging to the jet bridge glass, and 40 minutes until we boarded a charter full of wounded men headed home for the holidays. I've run this detail for 6 years, ever since my own knee finally retired me from the Army, and I needed something to do with my Saturdays besides yell at the television. I know every gate agent by name, every TSA supervisor's coffee order, every quirk of every veteran who's come through that jet bridge on my watch. I did not know the woman in the blue volunteer vest moving down the line with a water cart, and for about 10 seconds, I resented her for it. The Cedar Valley Veterans Send-Off runs 4 flights a year out of Garrison, and every December the volunteer pool doubles. Church groups, Rotary clubs, retirees with nothing better to do on a Saturday, like me. We get a lot of well-meaning people who show up in matching vests, hand out coffee, and need to be told twice not to grab a man's bad arm to help him up. So when I saw a woman I didn't recognize working the line with a water cart before sunrise, moving like she'd done it 100 times, my first thought wasn't admiration. It was that someone had let an extra volunteer through without checking in with me, and I'd have to sort it out before boarding. 5 minutes earlier, I'd watched her crouch beside chair 3, where a kid named Ortiz was breathing through a nasal cannula and staring at the ceiling tiles like they owed him money. She hadn't said a word to him, just leaned in, adjusted the tubing where it had pulled loose behind his ear, glanced at the little monitor clipped to his finger, and moved on before the EMT, standing 6 feet away, even noticed the numbers had dipped. I'd thought, fine, she knows which end of a cannula goes where. Good for her. I had not thought much else. "Ma'am, we've got this," I said, stepping in front of her as she reached chair 6. She didn't look up from the cart. "He needs water before he needs a blanket." She nodded past me at the man in the chair, Staff Sergeant Ray Tolliver. Someone I'd wheeled through this terminal 4 times now, each trip a little worse than the last. His knuckles were white on the armrests. His breathing had that shallow climbing hitch I'd learned to dread, the one that comes right before a man either bolts for the bathroom or goes somewhere a lot harder to reach, and on a jet bridge with 100 strangers watching, neither ends well. I started toward him. She got there first. She crouched in front of Ray's chair, not hovering, not fussing, just down at his eye level, easy, like she had all morning, and held out the water. "Sip first. Then we'll talk about the blanket." Ray's eyes were fixed somewhere past her shoulder, on nothing. His breath kept climbing. Short, hard pulls. His hand found the zipper of his jacket and worked it up and down, the way some men work a rosary. "Sergeant." Her voice didn't rise. "Look at me a second." He didn't. She reached up, 2 fingers, light, and tapped him on the collarbone. Twice. Tap, tap, and said 4 words, quiet enough that I almost missed them. "I've got you. Breathe." Ray went still. I want to be careful how I say this, because I've thought about it 100 times since, and I still don't have a better way to put it. I have watched chaplains talk men down. I've watched therapy dogs do it, and wives on speakerphone, and one time a kid's drawing taped to a tray table. I had never, in 6 years on this concourse, watched a grown man's whole body unclench in under 3 seconds because a stranger tapped him twice on the collarbone. Ray's eyes came back from wherever they'd gone. He looked down at her hand like it had just put out a fire he hadn't known was burning. "Where did you?" His voice cracked in the middle. "Where did you learn that?" She was already capping the water bottle, already half turned toward chair 7. "Standard technique. Helps with the pressure change." "No." Ray's hand shot out and closed around her sleeve, gentle, but he wasn't letting go. "No. Somebody did that to me before, a long time ago, right before I went under." He was digging in his jacket now with his free hand, fumbling at the inside pocket like the zipper owed him money. I caught the gate agent glancing over, caught Colonel Thomas Merrick, our guest of honor for the morning, standing near the jet bridge in his dress blues, ready to shake every hand as it boarded, straighten up at the sound of Ray's voice. "I've carried this 11 years, Ray said. 11 years, and I never." He pulled out a square of paper folded so many times it had gone soft as cloth, the creases worn pale and thin as old skin. He held it out to her, and his hand was shaking now for a different reason than the flight. She took it, unfolded it slow, like she already knew what was inside. 6 words in handwriting gone faint with age. "You're going home. Halo 6. I didn't understand what I was looking at, but I understood the sound that came from behind me. A sharp breath, the kind a man takes when he's been bracing for a hit for 11 years, and it finally lands. I turned. Colonel Merrick was standing maybe 15 feet back, and he was looking at the paper in her hands the way you'd look at a ghost wearing a blue vest. "Say that again," he said. His voice didn't carry far, but the gate had gone quiet enough that it reached every corner of it. "What you just did, with your hand." She turned toward him. For the first time since I'd clocked her 20 minutes earlier, she went completely still. "Sir, I..." 2 taps. Collarbone. Merrick's jaw worked like he was chewing on something he couldn't swallow. "I watched a flight nurse do that to my son on a transport off Taro Ridge 11 years ago. The medevac came in low, under fire, and by the time it set down there were 11 men laid out on that helipad, and 1 nurse working down the line like a metronome. Tourniquet. Airway. Tourniquet. 2 taps, 4 words. Next man. Watched her do it to 10 other men in 40 minutes, while half her own gear was bleeding through a sleeve she wouldn't let anyone look at. And on the back of a ration card, for every single one of them, she wrote something, folded it, tucked it into a pocket where a man would find it, once he woke up stateside, because she said." His voice caught, "because she said a man should have something to hold on to on the way down, even if he couldn't read it yet." The terminal had gone the kind of quiet that isn't silence. It's 40 people deciding, all at once, not to make a sound. She was supposed to rotate stateside 3 days later, Merrick said. Instead, she was gone before sunrise, pulled to a critical care transport detachment, the kind that doesn't show up on a roster, high-risk extractions, the missions nobody talks about after. No goodbye, no forwarding address. We were told it was a classified reassignment, and to leave it at that. Some of the men thought she'd been killed on a transport that went down 2 weeks after. 8 names on that manifest, and for years half my squadron swore one of them was hers. We held a memorial, for a woman who wasn't dead. We just never knew where she'd gone, or whether she was even still. He stopped himself, took 1 step closer. Read her ID badge, registered nurse M. Castle, like it might tell him the rest of it. "My son carried his card for 3 weeks before he could even open it," Merrick said, quieter now. "He was in a hospital in Germany, both legs in traction, and a chaplain finally unfolded it for him because his hands wouldn't work right yet. 6 words. He read them every night for a year. He never knew who Hollow 6 was. None of us did. We just knew somebody out there had thought enough of every man on that ridge to write it down before they could thank her." 11 years, he said. "And you've been doing this. Every December, in a vest, with a water cart, where nobody would ever look at you twice." She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was steady, but I could hear what it cost her to keep it that way. "I couldn't tell anyone where I was going, Colonel. Not even you. By the time I could have, telling you would have meant explaining 4 years of work that never officially happened on paper anywhere." She looked down at Ray, still gripping her sleeve, still holding that scrap of paper, like it was the only solid thing left in the terminal. "I came back to civilian nursing 8 years ago. I started doing this run that first December. I figured I'd carry water and check IVs and nobody would ever need to know I'd been on that ridge at all. I didn't think." She stopped. "Hallow 6, Merrick said. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Ray's hand tightened on her sleeve like he was afraid the floor was about to open under both of them. And around the gate, 11 wheelchairs and the men in them went rigid one after another, like a current running down the line, and I understood, watching it happen, that some of these men had been on that ridge too. 11 years, and not one of them had recognized the woman who'd been handing out water bottles for an hour. Until a man in dress blues said 2 words. From chair 3, Ortiz, the kid with the cannula she'd quietly fixed 20 minutes earlier, went white. "That's your handwriting," he said, almost to himself, and started patting down his own jacket. I have one too. I've had it since the hospital in Germany. I never knew who he found it. A card just like Ray's, gone just as soft, and held it up like proof of something he'd needed proof of for 11 years. Merrick came to attention and saluted her, full, formal, the kind of salute I hadn't seen outside a flag-folding ceremony in years. Ray let go of her sleeve, planted both hands on the armrests of his chair, and pushed himself up. Prosthetic locked, shaking with the effort, every physical therapist in this airport's worst nightmare, and nobody moved to stop him. He found his balance, swayed once, steadied, and brought his hand up to his brow level as a flagpole. One by one, down the line of wheelchairs, 10 more hands came up. Ortiz's card was still clutched in his free fist. She stood in the middle of it, composed, level-eyed, the same way she'd been crouched in front of Ray's chair a minute earlier. And I watched her throat work once, just once, before she returned the salute. Behind us, the gate agent had stopped scanning boarding passes. The whole concourse had gone still. A businessman with a rolling bag, a kid clutching a stuffed bear, a janitor with his mop frozen mid-stroke, every one of them looking at 11 wounded veterans, standing or saluting from their chairs for a woman in a blue vest holding a water bottle. I've worked this gate for 6 years. I've shaken 1,000 hands, loaded 1,000 duffel bags, told myself I'd seen every kind of homecoming there was. I was wrong about one. Merrick lowered his salute first and reached out, not for a handshake, but to fold both her hands around that worn ration card, like he was giving it back to her for safekeeping. 11 years, he said again, quieter now. We're going to fix that today. The squadron's been carrying your name on a memorial wall in the chapel at Garrison since the year you left. I want to be the one who takes it down, properly, with everybody on this flight standing there to watch. She looked down at the card, then at Ray, still standing, still saluting, with tears running openly down a face that had been gray with fear 20 minutes earlier, and was lit now like Christmas morning had come a day early. You're going home, she told him. Told all of them this time, same as I promised. Then she picked the water cart back up, because there were still 4 more chairs to check before we boarded. And because 11 years late or not, that's what she'd always done. And what she was going to keep doing all the way down the line, until every man on that manifest was on his way back to the people waiting for him. I didn't say another word about getting out of her way. I just got out of it, and I stayed out of it for the rest of that flight, watching a woman in a blue vest get saluted down a jetch by 11 men who, 20 minutes earlier, hadn't known her name and who would spend the rest of their lives making sure nobody forgot it again.